basically said, I'm not certain, but it appears to be a rare form of cancer that's not curable, and you should really think about getting your affairs in order. Felt it was important to let the kids know, if I'm not going to be around to take them to soccer practice or any of their school events, they should know why. I live in the United States. I live in Pittsburgh, but I was born in Italy, came over when I was 6 months old, and I am a citizen. I got my citizenship back when I was 6 years old. But basically, I had your basic American upbringing. I had a little bit of Italian spoken in the household, but that I was bilingual initially, and I still retain some of that. I've been working in a professional capacity as an accountant, and I've been doing that for a long time. And of course, I have a family and 3 kids. 2 of them are married, and 2 grandchildren that came in the past year and a half, I should say.
I appreciate you sharing more color about, who you are outside of all this. I know that this is actually, in terms of, you call it a journey, it actually goes back all the way to 2003 in terms of when you first started to feel something wasn't right. Can you bring us back to that time and what was going on?
Sure. Actually, at that time, I had just started a new job where I decided to change careers. A lot of people do that after they get cancer. I did it before. And I decided I wanted to teach full time. I was teaching part time for a while. And I got an opportunity to teach at a local college at the Penn State's Beaver campus. And I was working and setting up classes and working during the summer. I was in this little office. It was like a closet. And I started to feel, kind of tired. I thought, well, I'm just working too hard, trying to learn how to do all of this and also prepare materials for classes. And then I started having severe nosebleeds, but I thought, well, I just have a cold or something like that. They were pretty serious nosebleeds. Well, it was so bad that it was difficult to stop them. So I would end up with blood going down my shirt from the nosebleed. And it was, I would wipe it up or try to hide it at least, and then get the heck out of there. But it happened fairly frequently. So that then I thought, well, something's going on, but I'm too busy, and it stopped. Every once in a while it would stop, so I didn't think anything of it. You would get, it's a pretty good flow coming out of your nose, which is not normal, even for someone who normally gets nosebleeds. And at the same time, I also had a colonoscopy because I have Crohn's disease. So every year, a couple of years, I do that. And part of that is the blood test workup. And so around the same time, my gastroenterologist called and said, I saw some funny numbers. I think he even might have said elevated protein, but it didn't mean anything to me at the time because, I didn't pay attention to that stuff. And I ignored it. And then 3 months later, he called and said, hey, did you ever go to call that number that I gave you? I said, no, I got busy. I forgot about it. He said, it's really important that you call that number right away. And he didn't say anything else. So I called the number, and the receptionist said, such and such hematology clinic. And right there, I thought, oh, something's up here. I don't know, but this doesn't sound good. So we made an appointment, and my wife and I went, and we did blood work, and we got to meet with a hematologist. And he said, based on your blood work, it appears you have some type of lymphoma. I'm not sure what it is. We can do the bone marrow biopsy right now if you want, or you can schedule it. I said schedule, but my wife, being my very important caregiver, said, no, we're doing it right away. I don't want you putting it off. We did that right there. We went back to see him. And he basically said, I'm not certain, but it appears to be a rare form of cancer that's not curable, and you should really think about getting your affairs in order. And right there, it's like, we were in shock, but we kind of sat back and said, okay, I've already had one chronic illness. Let's add another one to it. Let's move on, and it's got to be something we can do. And we kind of said, okay, I appreciate your opinion, but can I get a second opinion? Because I can't believe that I can't do anything about it, and I'm going to die in 6 years. And he did say, well, that's your prerogative, and that's your opinion, and I'll be glad to give you the name of someone else who'll probably be more than willing to treat you right away. I thought, well, that's a kind of an odd attitude to take. So I'm kind of glad that I'm getting the second opinion. And actually, the doctor that he sent me to was actually a pretty good doctor, and I had a good relationship with him going. And that's when I started treatment sort of right away at that point.
And I know this is some time ago, but can you remember like just what you were feeling? Like, did you even get to process it? Like, what was that? You had your wife next to you?
Right. Yeah, we kind of do everything together. So I knew right off the bat, naturally, my first concern was for her to, what's she going to do, if I'm not around. But then the thoughts automatically go to my children. I'm not going to be around. They're in grade school and high school. There were 7, 14, and 16 at the time. And that is what really hit home, was like, wow, I won't get to see them graduate. I won't get to see them get married. I won't get to see any of the special moments in their lives. They won't have me around. That to me was the most, I don't know, the thing that took me back the most, the thing that hit me the hardest, was just not being there for my family.
Since we're talking about family and kids, I know we talked earlier about breaking the news to your children and talking with your wife as your care partner. How are we going to approach this? So how did you approach that conversation? And
well, once we found out exactly what I had, and did a little research on the disease, and found that it wasn't an immediate death sentence, because I was diagnosed at 43, which is unusually early for this disease. So we decided that because I had to go in treatment right away, and I could be pretty weak from the treatment, could have some odd side effects, we felt it was important to let the kids know, if I'm not going to be around to take them to soccer practice or any of their school events, they should know why. So we just laid it out to them straight and said, look, Dad has cancer, and tried to sell them in as simple a way as possible that it is serious, but it's treatable. And, we just kind of have to go with the flow, and I'll be around for a long time. I'm not going anywhere. I always told my wife that she can't get rid of me that easily. But, we're kind of honest and upfront, but, we're willing to answer any questions they had. But, of course, the older ones were fairly intelligent, and at that time could figure out how to find information out. But, we did try to answer their questions, and we're upfront with them. That worked for us, I think.
What went through your mind, I guess, in terms of, deciding I need that second opinion? And I guess that message now, I know also you have this perspective of being an advocate now for many years, but it's an important sort of note of self-advocacy that you seek out a second opinion, right? But really to dive into that difference between that first doctor and that second doctor and the way that they made you feel.
Yeah, that first doctor had that attitude, like you said, and maybe he was right, I don't know, but that attitude of, well, I know what I'm talking about, so don't question me. And even his staff, when I would call and say, hey, why is he requiring this test, or why does he want me to do this, they would say, well, why would you question that? And wouldn't even answer the question. So I knew right then that definitely I'm not going to this place again. And the second doctor was much more open. He kind of sat down with you. He drew charts. He explained it. He said, okay, you have Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, and we're going to treat it. And this is how we're going to treat it. And this is, said it's standard treatment at this point in time. And just because, you see a lot of statistics out there, that's an average. Don't think it's, that's just a median. Some people live shorter, some people live a lot longer. And given that you're diagnosed at an earlier age, there's a good chance you're going to live for a lot longer than those 6 years that they've been quoting to you. And he said, plus I have the ability to consult with a lot of other researchers and hematologists in our practice and in our hospital system that we'll discuss your case and we'll treat you accordingly. Working with that doctor, he was willing to kind of go back and forth, and I get this a lot now. It's from him and from the current doctor that I'm seeing. They both kind of said, well, here are your options. Which one do you want? It's like, well, I'm not the hematologist. How am I supposed to know? That's the first thing that comes in your mind. But then you kind of take a step back and say, yeah, he's right. There are options. And it is sometimes it is up to the patient what they're willing to tolerate and what they think they can tolerate in terms of the treatment protocol and side effects you could get and things along those lines. So what I liked about the second doctor I went to was his right away, I felt a connection with him that I didn't have with the first doctor. So sometimes it's a personality thing. It's their demeanor that you kind of click. It's kind of odd that that's an important aspect of it, the human element of that, not just the scientific. The important thing is to become educated. So when that doctor said, okay, here's the treatment plan we're going to do. It's fairly standard. We're going to try this first. I think it was cladribine. And I did a little research on it, but I went out searching on the internet and found the International Waldenstrom's Macroglobulinemia Foundation and hooked up with their online discussion list and automatically started asking questions of fellow patients and say, what do you think of this? Will it work? And basically the response I got was, yeah, there may be better options, but as a first time for treatment, it's sort of at that point in time, it was like, that's the least toxic. So give it a shot, see if it works. It may or may not. And so we went with that. It's important, especially for when you have a rare form of cancer, to seek out those centers of excellence if you can, or at least if you can't afford that or can't travel to it, to go to a larger research university-based hospital. So fortunately, I live close to one in Pittsburgh. We have the University of Pittsburgh. We have a lot of research going on there. And I was able to go to both hospital systems that I can go to. They're both have noted researchers there. So that makes a big difference. If you go to a community hospital, I'm not denigrating the hematologists or cancer patients there, cancer doctors there, but they may not even see a person with my disease in their whole career. So it's important to kind of at least get in touch with a doctor that has some experience with your disease, or can consult with other doctors in their practice that do have patients with your disease.
I guess the time between that and your first relapse, what was the doctor's message to you about your expectation setting? Okay, you have Waldenstrom's. We've done this first treatment. Now, did he say you should have this many years where you don't have to worry about this? Or what was that conversation?
Yes, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, with the cladribine, the thinking was I should get, a couple 2 to 5 years of a response. Let's say they don't like to use the word remission if you don't in a recurring kind of cancer. So, that was the expectation. And unfortunately, I didn't even get that. We just saw the numbers, the marker, which is immunoglobulin, the IgM marker. It maybe dipped down a little bit, but then started rising right back up again. And we knew it wasn't working.
Really in that time when you were just starting to figure out the cadence of living with another chronic, illness, the time in between, okay, you're supposed to get a response. Let's say it's 2 to 5 years. But even then you have to go in every month for a blood test.
Yes.
Mentally, that can be hard to grapple with, right?
Yeah, especially back then, you didn't get your blood results immediately. You had to wait a few days. And so that was nerve-wracking, to say the least, because you don't know what to expect from the results. and it was always that fear that, oh, here we go, we're going to have to go back to treatment again. And you kind of dread it, but also look forward to it because maybe it'll be a good result. And now, at least, I guess it's better now because you find out almost right away what your blood work results are. I'm in a different position now, so I kind of have I know my body better, so I kind of know when things are going well and when they aren't. So it's different now 20 years later, but I wish I had a magic solution, because I'm one of those people that, to look at me, a lot of people say, oh, you look so great. And it's like, yeah, but still I have this thing hanging in the back of my head all the time, even though I know I'm doing well. I'm always kind of thinking, well, when's it going to get worse? When am I going to get the next major relapse? It's there. I don't know if you want to call it PTSD or what you want to call it, but
I've actually heard someone call it OTSD, ongoing traumatic stress
I
disorder.
like
Like it's
that.
ongoing.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that's the thing that I try to focus on, is just finding what it's helped me to do. What, having cancer kind of gives you a renewed focus on the fact that, or a focus period on the fact that we don't know how long we're going to be around. So you try to enjoy whatever you can, even if it's just a nice dinner. It's fantastic. Don't dwell on the things that are negative, because that just makes your quality of life even worse. The important thing is to improve your quality of life and work on that. Even though you may be feeling sick, you may not be able to get out of bed, you may not be able to get up from the couch. Find things that you find joy in and try and focus on that. It's not easy. You can't always achieve that, but that's kind of what guides me and what gets me going. Of course, my family and things like that help me.